First of all, what is your reaction to what happened on October the 7th?
It was terrible, of course. I mean, we kind of get our news kind of also secondhand because, you know, my wife's family, they live in Gaza. She have cousins and uncles there, and their house also was bombed. We haven't been able to communicate with them for the past 3 days. Communication are lost. So we don't know actually how they're doing, but, you know, we're used to that. I mean, it's just like, it's very repetitive. We're used to that. We're used to them being bombed every time and moving from one place to the other. You know, it's just like those Palestinians, they're very dramatic. Israel killing us. But they never die. I mean, they always come back. You know, they're very difficult to kill, very difficult people to kill. I know because I'm married to one. I tried many times, couldn't kill her.
I mean, there's a dark humor there, and I understand why, because...
No, it's not dark humor. I try to get to her every time, but she uses our kids as human shields. I can never take her out.
And you've condemned Hamas, and you recognise Israel's right to exist as well.
What is the use of this kind of question?
Just
no. Why is this has to be like a checkpoint?
Setting the parameters.
Does Britain have the right to exist?
I think so.
Okay, do the Palestinians have the right to exist?
Britain may not exist.
I mean, the idea is like, why is this like moral checkpoint? Is this like supposed to scare me?
No.
If I say no, or what about the Palestinians' right to exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Lots of people believe in the
but not Israel.
Solution.
But not Israel. So Israel wants us to all to acknowledge its right to exist.
Government.
The Israeli government and the people who voted for them, was, by the way, that like their society is becoming more and more radical. But like let's say Israel government, like they put us through all of these moral checkpoints. Does Israel have the right to exist? Does Israel have the right to defend itself? But when we ask them the same question about Palestinians, they have all of these like whining answers that they don't want to exist. They don't even want us to the right to other people to exist. Just today, they just bombed the embassy of a foreign country in a neighboring country in Syria. They are dragging the whole people by war, and then when people respond, they say like, "Oh my God, you hate the Jews, you're anti-Semitic." It's just like it doesn't make sense anymore. Haven't you just like reached a point where you're looking at these questions are very stupid? Remember when we were talking about did Hamas or did Israel bomb the Al Ahli hospital, and since then Israel bombed 36 hospitals? It's just they move too fast, and by the time you just like catch up and you corner them, it's like, well, I'm entitled. Like, if you talk about it, you're anti-Semite. I'm doing this to protect myself. Here's the thing. Every time Israel say like, Israel have the right to defend itself. Israel had the right to exist. And I would say like, Israel have the right to go F itself. This is like what happened with the World Central Kitchen, yeah? They killed 7 people. It's like, we're sorry, guys. I mean, war is terrible. And then the second one, they said, it's Hamas. And then third one, it was us. And then, war is bad, guys. I mean, sorry. I know we're sorry. And then they would even have their Twitter account saying, this is the difference between Hamas and Israel, because Israel acknowledges its mistakes and apologizes. Bravo, bravo, beautiful. And then one of the teachers said like, look what Hamas made us do. Just like, I mean, you don't even need to actually write any jokes about this.
If you were Israel and that had happened to you, what would you think would be the appropriate way for the country to respond?
I would do exactly like Israel did, kill as many people as possible, since the world is letting me do it. I mean, I can do it because I can, you know. But the thing is, like, you know what, I agree with you. And you know what, I'm going to be even ahead of you, because I see the question coming. Do you condemn Hamas for the atrocity? Yes, I condemn Hamas. I condemn Hamas. Hamas is the source of all evil. They're the reason for everything. And you know what, let's for a minute imagine a world without Hamas.
Right.
What will this world look like? Let's give this world a name, and let's name this world the West Bank. Hamas has absolutely no control in the West Bank, and since the beginning of this year, only through August, 37 Palestinian kids were killed. No music festival, no paragliding, no Hamas. Since the occupation of the West Bank, 7,000 Palestinians were killed. No music festival, no paragliding, no Hamas.
You talk about the genocide in Israel or in Gaza as if it's just a matter of fact. Well, let me show some stats for you, because after you see these stats, Israel's the worst genociders ever. According to the world data, if you trust data, between 1990 and 2022, the Palestinian population overall went from 2 million to 5 million, okay? Pretty bad at genocide if that's what's happening right there. In Gaza, it went from 645,000 to 2.1 million. It's 3x. That ain't genocide to me. Now, to 20,000 people, 30,000 people, needless needlessly killed during this bullshit war that was started by Hamas. Is that horrible? 1,000,000%. And any Jew or any Israeli...
Give me that number again. 600,000 to what?
645,000 to 2.1 million.
From what to, from when to where?
This is in 1990 to 2022.
Do you know why they increased?
Because they're having babies like crazy.
No, you see, this is how, like, when you watch data while being uninformed makes me look very stupid.
Tell me why. Tell me how the population has gone from 2 million to 5 million.
Yeah, because most of the 1.5 extra million didn't come from Gaza. They were pushed away from other parts of Israel. So most of these people, they have increased because of refugees being kicked out.
If you're talking about the settlers, those are tens of thousands.
I'm talking about
those
Gaza.
aren't millions of people.
Dude, listen, my wife's family is not from Gaza, and yet they found themselves in Gaza because they were sitting in other cities and villages outside Gaza. This is the systemic pushing of people from other parts of Israel, pushing them to Gaza.
That's not millions of people. This is why I said that you're intellectually dishonest or intellectually lazy.
No.
That's not the cause of millions of people being moved. I'm familiar with the settler stuff and the disengagement in 2006.
You don't know what you're talking about. These are people that
millions of people?
What?
Okay.
The people who belong to Gaza are 700,000 people. Right now, Gaza is 2.2 million. That is not birth rate, my friend. These are people pushed from, and by the way, that's not the first time. 1948, at the night of the declaration of the State of Israel, 1.5 million Palestinians were like moved overnight. So it's not the first thing. So before you giving me numbers you want to appear smart, know what are behind the numbers, because these are not people giving babies.
Okay.
These are people being pushed from other places in order to be part of the open air prison that it is. When you spread the lies of 40 decapitated babies, although it was refuted, so what happens when people hear that, killing babies is horrible. But when you say decapitated 40 babies, you are planting a certain image,
well, who has
with a
said
certain
that?
Trigger in people's mind.
Who has said that? Who has said 40?
Who has said that? You have said 40 decapitated.
Who has said that?
You have repeated.
No, I haven't.
What?
I've never said that.
You haven't said on your show 40 decapitated babies?
Never. I choked up earlier reading this new revelation about 40 babies being killed.
Oh my God.
And some of them being beheaded. And I was like, how can any human being do that to a baby?
You haven't said on your show 40 decapitated babies?
Never.
Ben Shapiro didn't say it?
No.
Ron DeSantis didn't say
Nobody
it?
has said
it. Okay, Peter,
no,
nobody said it?
No.
Oh, okay, maybe I am wrong. Decapitated.
You're wrong. I've never said that.
There was a very famous post by a speechwriter of Netanyahu. He said, what is so horrific about understanding that the whole Palestinian people are our enemies? All of them are enemy combatants. We should kill them, kill their mother, destroy their homes, the homes that they raised those snakes, so no snakes will be raised in this house anymore. And this was reposted by Ali Chaket, which is the Minister of, wait for it, Justice. It's not about Hamas anymore. It is not about Hamas. They can tell you it's about Hamas, but it's not about Hamas. It is basically, they have said it many times, Piers. This is a way to kind of push them into Sinai. This is not about eradicating Hamas. This ship has sailed. I am sorry, but like anybody who still believes that this is about Hamas is stupid, because
I don't agree with that.
Really?
No, because I think...
So why they're...
I'll tell you what I don't agree.
There are like 100 people...
I think any country that suffered the kind of terror attack that Israel suffered, with the kind of death toll that occurred that day, 1,500 plus people, grandmothers, kids, young women being raped, kidnapped, beheaded, it's been reported, and so on. Well, you can raise an eyebrow. I mean, they found a young woman's skull. Right?
But what about the babies that were beheaded?
Well, there was a report, and you and I had this discussion on air. You falsely quoted me, and I wanted to clarify that with you in person. You thought I'd said that 40 babies had been beheaded.
So what did you say?
I never said that.
What did you say?
I said it's been reported that 40 babies were killed, some of whom had been beheaded. That's what I said.
Yeah. Totally different. Yeah.
There's a very different... Well, it is different.
Yes.
So when you say you feel your people, if you like, or Palestinians they don't count as much.
People. They are human beings.
Human beings, but they don't count the same way.
No, they don't count. How many Palestinian kids were killed since October 7th? In the West Bank? 81.
Yeah.
If 81 Israeli kids were killed since October 7th, what will the world do?
But is this a revelation to you?
No, it's not a revelation. We know this all along, but when you see it,
you're confronted by it right now.
Because we know we did it. We don't matter. We know that our lives doesn't. It's not that valuable. We understand that. We've seen this a long time ago. Like, when 11 people from Charlie Hebdo were killed, which is terrible, of course. Everybody used to be of Charlie, and then the world leaders went to Paris. 11 people. What? You have 30,000. If the news tomorrow comes out, 10,000 Palestinians were killed, do you think the world will make any change? No.
I mean, I saw the argument you made around that was about the dehumanization of Palestinians and about talking about them as animals. Do you think that was even needed?
No, it's not needed, but it's.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, you know, because I think, you know, it's just self-evident that people in some parts of the world are valued less than people in other parts of the world when it comes to death. When you're living in the Western world.
Yeah.
The question is, do you think the Palestinians needed to be dehumanized, or were they just worth less in the West?
Both, because in order to escalate the violence, you need to remind the people how inhuman those people are in order to continue doing it. Because Israel has been killing them on a daily basis, but in order to up the violence every now and then, you need a little bit of a reminder of how inhuman those people are. There's a very important point here. You know, I want to understand what is the logic of Israel carpet bombing Gaza. I mean, if there's a logic, if this will make Israel safe, I want to hear the logic. So if they continue bombing, what are they hoping to achieve?
Well, I think we know what their stated aim is. Their stated aim is to eradicate and wipe out Hamas. They believe Hamas are living predominantly in northern Gaza. They also are aware they're living amongst civilians. So it's an incredibly difficult thing. As I said in my monologue, you know, it is very, very difficult to see how they do this without massive collateral damage.
So if I can understand this correctly, basically Israel is doing this to pressure the Palestinian community in Gaza to turn against Hamas. Is that right?
I'm sure that's part of it, yes.
That's part of it. So this is exactly what terrorist organizations do, because terrorist organizations would have no chance beating a whole nation in battle. So they terrorize and they kill the civilians in order to spread fear and terror so they can turn against their government to change their policy or to resign. You have just compared Israel with ISIS.
I think we see two main perspectives being talked about in both the mainstream and actually new media as well, which is, you know, there's one side which is genocide, and the other side is October 7th, therefore Israel's allowed to do whatever it wants. And I think that's kind of not where most people are from speaking to people here in the West. I think a lot of people feel that what they're seeing out of Gaza is horrific, absolutely horrific. And on the other hand, they also feel that what they saw on October 7th was horrific, and they sort of expected that response because that's what most countries would do, is what I hear from a lot of people. What do you make of that, and how can we add some nuance to this?
So what do you mean most countries will do? So most countries will go and kill 30,000 people?
No, most countries will kill a lot more. I mean, if you look at 9/11...
So we should be happy with 30,000?
No, I'm not saying happy. I'm saying this is what people feel would happen in response to something like October 7th. Just from speaking to normal people. Whether it's right or wrong.
But why are we resetting the clock at October 7th?
I'm not resetting the clock.
No, but here's the thing, because it's either like October 7th, what about October 2nd? What about September 15th? Like the whole idea of like people think that there was like a ceasefire before October 7th. That's not true. 3 weeks before October 7th, Israel bombed Gaza 3 days straight, and there was no music festival to do that. I mean, before October 7th, there was 234 Palestinians killed in the West Bank, which is not even in Gaza. There was like 70 kids killed. That's without October 7th. The thing is, you only see October 7th, but the fact is, like, if you're a Palestinian, what options do you have? You throw rocks, you're a kid, you throw rocks and your limbs will be broken. You join armed resistance, you're going to be called a terrorist and killed. You don't do anything and you sit in your home, and your home will be confiscated and your land will be confiscated in the West Bank. You boycott BDS and you don't have a job. So what are you supposed to do? And the fact is...
But that argument plays both ways, is what I'm saying to you, which is why a lot of people are kind of conflicted, which is why I don't...
But there's no conflict, because before October 7th...
But let me make the point, Bassem. Hold on. Because I don't want to have a big argument. I'm interested in your perspective, but I have to put the question to you that I think a lot of people would want the answer to, which is, if you were the Prime Minister of Israel on October 8th, what would you do?
You see, that's again, you're resetting the clock. You are judging people what you do for their reaction.
Yeah.
Before October 7th, there is a total of 100,000 Palestinians killed and injured.
Agree.
You cannot keep pushing people to the limit, and when they react violently... Okay, what happened October 7th?
No, let's accept your argument.
What happened October 7th?
Well, I'm going to ask you that in a second, but let's accept your argument. For the sake of argument, I'm not saying this is what I think, but for the sake of argument, let's say that October 7th was a perfectly justified uprising on the basis of all the terrible atrocities Israel has committed. Let's say we accept that, okay? You're the Prime Minister of Israel on the 8th of October. What would you do?
Yeah, because if I'm the Prime Minister of Israel, I will do exactly what Netanyahu does. us, because Israel have been doing more stuff than this and was getting away with it, was getting away with murder.
But that's what you would do, right?
Israel just killed 7 international workers from the UN. And you know what they did? Oh, sorry, you know what? It's war. I mean, mistakes happen. We're sorry, guys. Up yours.
Do you not think that's true, though?
Of course not, because there is a history of Israel killing international workers and UN with absolutely no consequences. If Israel today stopped the Gaza war, you know what will happen? Israel will be applauded. Thank you so much for just killing 30,000 people. We're so happy that you just killed those amount of people. And there will be no consequences for the murders and the war crimes that Israel have been doing for 6 months. It's crazy. You think, like, you're asking me what should I do? If I'm the prime minister of Israel like Netanyahu, I'm a killer. I'm a mass murderer. I've been killing Palestinians all my life, and I've absolutely had no pushback. So I will kill. I will do exactly what Israel does.
I don't mean if you were Netanyahu. I mean if you were the prime minister.
If I was, I wouldn't have done the stuff that would have led to October 7th.
Fine, but that's not really where we are. That's not the reality of the situation.
No, the reality of the situation that you want to corner people on October 7th and you forget what happened before.
That's not, I'm not trying to corner anyone. I'm saying...
You just asked me if I was the prime minister of Israel.
Yes.
If I was Netanyahu, I would do that. If I was Bassem, I wouldn't have done the stuff that Netanyahu has done that would lead to October 7th. How can I expect to believe this regime, especially if the president of Israel comes down with this ridiculous thing? Have you seen that?
No.
He said, okay. This was reported by Sky News, and it was the funniest thing I've seen so much. This was a Colin Powell moment, but like the cheap edition. Mr. Herzog said, like Isaac Herzog, it's like, we have found evidence on one of the terrorists, a manual to create chemical bombs. And then he showed this, and he showed, and this is, I just want to say, why would a foot soldier go into any with like a manual to chemical bombing? It's like, is that BYOB, bring your own beer, bomb? It's crazy. And what he like have like local ingredients to make, and then this is like, this is a manual of Al-Qaeda, of course, convenient state Al-Qaeda. And let me read it to you in Arabic because this is funny. It's النشرة الدولية المعنية بالتطوير الذاتي والمعرفي للمجاهدين, which basically say this is basically like a catalog for self-improvement for mujahideen. I didn't know that they have life coaches. So this, and you know what Sky News said? It's like, we cannot confirm or any of this, but we will show it anyway.
So let me respond.
So this is like this is a lying government.
Rishi Sunak told Benjamin Netanyahu that the situation in Gaza is increasingly intolerable.
Is increasingly intolerable. I don't even need to comment. I need to just repeat what he said, which is interesting, that after 6 months, 30,000 people killed, 80% of the place destroyed, 100% of the people displaced, 50% of the victims are children, but it is starting to get a little bit uncomfortable.
Does it not fall foul of the same problem, though, right? That in the same way that in the West, we kind of, particularly in the media, and absolutely our politicians actually, they try to characterize Islam as being defined by its most extreme proponents, its fundamentalists, which I think is wrong, right? Like, I dispute that to the strongest level. Similarly, to argue that extreme rabbis, the most, I don't know, extreme orthodox individuals, their version of Judaism is not the Judaism of, for example, sort of Western liberal Jews. And I don't know if it's fair to sort of characterize that entire faith based on...
Absolutely, I agree with you, but isn't it weird that the same extreme rabbis are the head rabbis of the Israeli army? Isn't it like weird that like their words is being repeated by the prime minister themselves? When the prime minister talk about the Amalek, when you talk about the Amalek, basically you're giving permission to kill everybody, woman or child or anything, because they're the Amalek, they need to be wiped out.
Yeah.
So it's the same way, like you cannot judge the Arab world or the Muslim world by some extreme rhetoric said by the leaders of ISIS, right? But if the president of Egypt or the king of Jordan or the king of Saudi Arabia is starting to repeat that rhetoric, that's problematic, correct? The whole idea about like, we need to kill the infidels, and if the president of Egypt started saying that, that's problematic. Now, if the prime minister is not just that, is the members of his cabinet. I mean, we just talked about the example about like insulting Christians.
Yeah.
Ben Gvir, he's the minister of national security of Israel. The guy said like spitting of Christians is not a hate crime, it's part of my faith. That is a minister. So I'm not picking on because you can pick on extreme people on the internet, from the Muslim side, from the Christian side, from the Jewish side, but I'm talking about people who are in position of power. If I'm criticizing Israel, why is this anti-Semitic? It's like when you criticize Saudi Arabia or Iran or Egypt, nobody calls you an Islamophobe, right? But it's only Israel. It's like this kind of like, oh, you feel all of this like victimization, all of this like guilt tripping. Israel is a government, is a country, and I don't know why as an American I can say whatever I want about Trump or Biden, and then I come to Israel and all of these like booby traps that you cannot go into. It is unfair and it's against the freedom of expression.
I think if you have two groups of people who are ideologically wedded to your destruction as a state and as a populace, and you're constantly firing rockets, as Hamas have done for over a decade now, then that cannot be acceptable. You have to stop that, right? These are terrorists who've now shown on October the 7th their true colors. They don't just talk about wanting to kill all Jewish people, they are going to do it if they get the chance. So I don't believe Hamas can possibly stay in any position of authority in Gaza. I think that would be ruinous for not just the people of Gaza, but also for Israelis. So if you're going to get rid of them, which many people think on both sides is inevitable and should happen as a consequence of what they did, the big question is, how do you do that? And I don't know any other way other than the way Israel is currently doing. Hence my personal moral quandary about this.
So if a terrorist takes over the Empire State, instead of taking it out, we bomb the whole Empire State?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Proportion.
That is not even a question. Well, that was not even a question, because that would be ridiculous.
What perhaps I hear less of is your thoughts about Hamas and how you, as now an Arab American, but as an Egyptian too, how you relate to the Islamism and the commitment to violence and the commitment to establishing a Palestinian Islamic entity from the sea to the River Jordan, how you make sense of that, and whether you have a critique of that too, which you want to express, or whether you don't feel able to express that.
No, I'm sorry. Did you say like an Islamic entity from the river to the sea? Did you say that?
I did.
But people who shouting from the river to the sea are not really Islamic. And they don't, and many of them don't even agree with Hamas. The river to the sea is a Palestinian chant, it's not an Islamic chant. That's number one. Number two, from the river to the sea is not coined by the Palestinians, it's coined by the Israelis. It's in the Likud party chart in 1977. They say from the sea to the Jordan, there are only going to be Israeli sovereignty. So they coined the thing before that.
Bassem.
No more interviews, I'm sorry.